तमाम साथियों को या अली मदद
या अली मदद
मौला अली मदद. Thank you for confirming my voice. Thank you for joining us this morning. Inshallah, we will continue with our series of lecture on the necessity of Imam in Ismaili Tariqa by our wonderful speaker, Rashidah Sahibah from London, Rashidah Nur Mohammad Sahibah from London. And I see she's here with us. Welcome, Rashidah Sahibah. Ya Ali Madad. You can start as whenever you're ready.
Okay, Aziz Bhai, thank you very much. First and foremost, from me here in London, to all of you, wherever you are joining from, I wish you all a very, very sincere and heartfelt Ya Ali Madad, not only as a greeting, but as a prayer for help from Maulana Hazrat Imam. May his Noor help us all to understand what is being discussed, help us to digest what we are hearing, and may your listening be very sharp and accurate, and may Khudawan give me the right words to explain the realities, the hakikat of our holy faith, which is the faith of Islam, and within that our tariqa, the tariqa of the Ismaili tariqa of Islam. So today, as you can see on the screen as well, our topic is universality of Imam and how he is both Imamul Nas as well as Imamul Muttaqeen. And within that, we will be looking at what are the essential and historical roles of the spiritual guide, be that the prophet of the time or be that the Imam of the time. So I want to start with a very wonderful example that Pir Nasir Khisrau gives in his Wajuddin. He says that in our human body, our nose, nak, is the symbol of the Imam. This is really interesting. Why would the nose be the symbol of the Imam? And he explains that it is through the nose that we breathe. And breathing continues whether we are awake or whether we have gone to sleep. The breathing continues. In other words, when we are awake, we know that this breathing, the continuous intake of oxygen, this is what is keeping us alive. But when we are asleep, we don't realize that this same breathing is keeping us alive, because during sleep, we are not alert, we are not aware of how our senses are working. And this example shows that today in the entire world, those people who recognize the Imam of the time, it is as though they are the ones who are awake and who know that it is the existence of the Imam that keeps them alive. And the rest of the world, even though they are a vast majority who do not recognize the Imam of the time, they are as though they are asleep. And even though they are asleep, it is the Imam's spiritual power, it is the Imam's Noor which is keeping them alive, giving them existence. So it's a brilliant, brilliant example, because I know that within the Jamaat, there are many people, particularly the young ones, who are always extremely concerned and worried about the fact that we Ismailis are such a tiny minority within the Ummah. And then within the entire humanity, we may not even be like a pinch of salt. But that is something that we shouldn't worry about, we should be thankful that we know we are breathing and this keeps us alive. In other words, we know that it is the Imam's existence which keeps us alive. And I will come to some references in a minute which will show you why there is this thinking in our tariqah. But first, I want to go back to the Quran because I hope that you have all realized that whatever I have said during all these sessions, today is the sixth session in this series, that whatever I have tried to say, I have always referenced it from the Holy Quran. So this is an important point I would like to underline to all of you, that please do not think that I have made up these facts or that this is from my mind. No, it is first and foremost from the Holy Quran, and then whatever I say is backed up from what our Imams have said, from what our hujjats like Pir Nasir Kisra or our peers, Pir Sadruddin have said, and always giving you the exact reference. So now the Quranic reference which I want you all to note down is Surah 21 and ayat number 107. And in this ayat, it's a very famous phrase. You may hear it often. You may hear it in kawalis, qasidas, all the time. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. God, Allah says to the Holy Prophet, and we sent you not save except as a mercy to all the worlds, Alameen. And here the word Alameen, worlds, of course, includes all the physical worlds in the universe, as well as human beings, because each human being is also a personal world. So this is the title of the Holy Prophet in the Holy Quran. And not only once, in doing research for this lecture, I came across Surah 34, Ayat 28, in which again Allah says, and we have not sent you, O Muhammad, except as a bringer of good news, which is Bashir in Arabic, and a warner, somebody who warns about the punishment which will come if you don't follow divine laws. And a warner in Arabic is Nazir. So he says that we have not sent you except as a bringer of good news and a warner unto all humankind. But most of humankind know not. This is a very favorite phrase of the Holy Quran. Lakin aksaran nas la ya'lamun. Aksaran nas, the majority do not know. And God is not concerned about that. He is not worried about that. Most of you do not know, but Allah has sent the Holy Prophet for the whole of humankind as a bringer of good news and as a warner of the punishment that can await people who go against divine laws. Similarly, the Holy Quran says about the Imam. So those two ayats refer directly to the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. But in Surah 17, ayat 71, which I tell all my students, it's so easy to remember, 1771. And in this ayat, Allah says, يَوْمَ نَدْعُ كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ. This is a very difficult ayat for people who don't believe in the existence of imamat. So every single Quranic translation which we will see, majority of which are done by our exoteric brothers and sisters, always the word imam, imamihim, which in Arabic is singular, is always translated as a'imma, as imams, plural. but that is completely incorrect. In this ayat, يَوْمَ نَدْعُ كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ, on the day when we shall summon all human beings, كُلَّ أُنَاسٍ, all human beings with their Imam, in singular. So in every age, in every time, there is but one Imam. So you will often hear from members of the Jamaat that they will say Prophet Muhammad is the Prophet of Islam. All right, if they understand Islam in its wider meaning, which is the one and the only faith of God, because God is one, His religion is one, and the Quran talks about Hazrat Abraham as a Muslim and all the prophets as Muslims. So if you understand the word Islam in its wider meaning, which is a more correct meaning, then this would not be a wrong statement to say that Prophet Muhammad is a prophet of Islam. But if you understand it in the historical meaning as the Islam which was perfected by Allah at Ghadir Qum, then that is only 1400 years history. And it would be incorrect to say that Prophet Muhammad is a prophet for only Muslims today. All prophets are for all humankind, and it does not matter where they were residing, where they were living, what language they were receiving the scripture or the wahi, the revelation in, their message for the whole of humankind. In the same way, if we say that Imam is only for the Ismailis, then that would be also incorrect in the light of what the Holy Quran tells us. It would be more correct to say that the Ismailis are those who recognize the Imam of the time, who recognize the Imam of the time. And therefore, the correct title of the Imam is Imam-e-Zaman. As you know, that Imam is called Imam-e-Zaman, or in English, the Imam of the time. And there is a very important farman. So I'm going to reference this farman for you. This farman was made in Moscow, Russia, on the 29th of January, 1995. This was the very first mulaqat of Maulana Hazar Imam with the Central Asian Jamaat, who had not received the Zahiri or physical mulaqat or didar of the Imam for centuries. It was a very, very historic occasion, this 1995 Moscow didar. It is after this didar that Maulana Hazar Imam visited Tajikistan. And in this farman, Maulana Hazar Imam said, let us recite salawat, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. First, let me remind you that for all murids of the Imam, for all murids of the Imam, whether they are from Central Asia, from India, from Pakistan, from the Western world, the fundamental principle is the recognition of the Imam of the time. The fundamental principle is the recognition of the Imam of the time. I really emphasize the word fundamental principle. This is the foundation, the root of our tariqah. Everything else rotates around it. But the most important thing in our tariqah is to recognize the Imam of the time. And you know, in our holy dua, which we recite 3 times a day, in the very first part of our dua, we refer to Maulana Hazar Imam as Sahibah Zamani wal Asr. He is the Sahib, the master of Zaman, the physical time, as well as asr, the spiritual time. So in other words, every day in our dua, we recite that the Imam is master, Lord of both the physical and spiritual worlds. Both. Not only here in the physical world, he also reigns supreme in the spiritual world. And for this, there are examples which you will have heard, because I know that you attend many lectures. You will have heard from the Quran once again that Hazrat Adam was charged, he was given the responsibility to teach angels as well as human beings. So you see the importance of the Imam or the Prophet for both the physical as well as the spiritual worlds. In the Quran, in the Surah Jinn, which is Surah 72, the very first ayah tells you that when Prophet Muhammad was teaching the Quran, that the jinn, the invisible creatures, the spiritual entities, also attended his teaching sessions. Now, in spite of all this type of concrete evidence, strong, really strong evidence, what do you find? That recognition of prophets and imams is perhaps the most difficult aspect of our faith. And we have gone through that. When you look at the similarities and the dissimilarities between human beings, all human beings and the imam or the prophet of the time. You know, we have covered this in very great detail in our session. I think it was the third session, right? And now we're on the sixth session. So here I'm repeating again that the most difficult aspect of faith is to recognize the Imam, because he is in a physical manifestation. And sometimes, you know, because it is so difficult to recognize the role of the Imam, the existence of the Imam, the necessity of the existence of the Imam, then you also find that their role in as worldly rulers is also recognized sometimes, and sometimes it is not recognized, if you look at history. And here, I want to give you a reference from the memoirs. You remember in the last two sessions, I have been insisting that you should all read chapter 8 of the memoirs, The Islamic Concept and My Role as Imam by Maulana Sultan Muhammad Shah, in the international language of English, written for the whole world, not only for his murids, the Ismailis. Now, what does Maulana Sultan Muhammad Shah say in chapter 8, which in the English publication is on page 173? The Prophet Muhammad, I'm quoting now, the Prophet Muhammad had two sources of authority. One religious, which was the essential one of his life, and the other secular, which by the circumstances and accidents of his career became joined to his essential and divinely inspired authority in religion. So what are we saying here? We are saying here that really speaking, the Imam is the ruler physically of the entire world as well as spiritually. But this worldly side of his authority has sometimes been recognized and accepted, acknowledged, and sometimes it has not. For instance, if you take the history of Prophet Muhammad, while he was in Makkah, his birthplace, his family home as well, he was not recognized as a ruler. There are far too many others who wanted to have that physical rulership. In fact, this was the reason why he had so much trouble from them, because they felt threatened that his uh, work would undermine their power and authority. But when he moved to Medina, he was happily recognized as the head of the state. He was happily recognized as the head of the state. And as you know, I have already explained in other previous sessions that when the Prophet left this world physically, then people felt that now they should continue the secular role, the physical role, but they should not pay any attention to his religious role, his spiritual role. And here in the quotation of Maulana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salwatullahi alayhi, you saw that his uh, religious was the essential one of his life. The spiritual role was the essential one of his life. Similarly, if you go further back in history from um, Prophet Muhammad, you look at the stories of prophets David, Dawood, and Solomon, that there were worldly kings, and as well as that, there were prophets. And if you come further down from Prophet Muhammad in the Ismaili history, everybody talks about the Fatimid period. They call it the glorious period of our history. Yes, Fatimid period, the Imams were rulers of an empire which stretched from North Africa, Sicily, Egypt into the Middle East. And in the time of Alamut, where the Ismaili Nizari Imamat continued, Alamut was also a state. It had secular power. And then even nearer, if you come to our recent history, what do we know about Maulana Sultan Muhammad Shah Salwatullahi alayhi? That he became the president of the League of Nations, which was the most important role in the entire world at that time. President of the League of Nations. That was a secular role. And about Maulana Hazar Imam, you know that they say often that he is a king but without a territory. I'm sure members of the Jamaat have noted that, wherever Imam has been, particularly in the Golden and the Diamond Jubilees, whichever country he visits, my flag has equal importance to the national flag of the country that is visiting. So, people do realize that his authority, his leadership, and I have quoted last time, I think, from the memoirs again, that when the Holy Prophet passed on, divine power, leadership, and guidance manifested in Hazrat Ali. And that is the same understanding we have about Maulana Hazar Imam. And it is accepted by many people outside, whether they think about it or not. So I have now, I hope, set the context that we may have thought of the Prophet Muhammad and the Imams from his progeny as being limited to us. But the reality is that they are completely universal. In the divine program, they are for all of humankind. That is the background that I have built up. And now I'm going to talk about within that, why do we have these two terms, Imamul Nas and Imamul Mutaqin? So first of all, we should look at Imamul Nas. And I hope you all know the word Nas means humankind, all the people in the world. And we have already seen in the Surah 17, Ayat 71, يَوْمَ نَدُوكُ الْأُنَاسٍ بِإِمَامِهِمْ, that all people will be called with their Imam. In other words, the Imam of the time will be the witness over the deeds of the people of his time. So to understand that, we need to know that the Quran also uses the word shaheed, witness, for the Imam. The Quran is fascinating. We also covered that in the second lecture of this series, that apart from the 12 times the word Imam or Aimma appears in the Quran, there are many, many other terms which apply to the Imam of the time. And one of them is Shahid. And this Shahid applies to the Prophet. It also applies to Allah. So Shahid means a witness. And you all know that a witness can only be a person who is present to witness whatever it is that is to be witnessed. So that again tells you, the word Shahid tells you that the Imam should always be present. So he is the one who vouches for the actions, the deeds of the people of his time. And so here I want to bring in two very important ahadiths. Hadith, prophetic traditions, and its plural is ahadith. So two, I'm going to discuss two now. That one hadith of the Holy Prophet says that if the Imam of the time, the Imam, were to be absent from this planet Earth for even a moment, even a split second, the whole earth would shake with its contents. Very, very powerful hadith. Right? We have already said, haven't we, that it is the Imam's presence on this planet that keeps everybody alive, breathing. That's why Nasir uses the symbol, the example of the nose. And the other hadith is that the Prophet said, the one who dies and does not recognize the Imam of his time dies a death of ignorance. And the ignorant is in fire. Very interesting use of the tense, the verb. The ignorant will not go to hell or will not go to the hellfire, but he or she is in fire at this present moment because they do not recognize the Imam of the time. In other words, they have a very wonderful animal life, like all animals have a life. They all eat, they all drink, they all procreate. And now you will also realize why I use the Mosque of Arman, where the Imam said that the most important thing, wherever you come from, the fundamental principle is the recognition of the Imam of the time. So this second hadith is the one which divides people into two groups. Those who recognize the Imam of the time and those who do not recognize the Imam of the time. And so these are the two words in the titles of the Imam, Imamun Nas, meaning all of humankind, where the majority do not recognize him as the leader in whom divine power, authority, and leadership has manifested. But the second group, Imamul Muttaqin, the Muttaqin, the righteous, the pious, are those who do recognize that he is the Imam of the time in whom divine power, leadership, and guidance manifests. And here I want to bring in a historical fact that Maulana Ali, because recently I have been completing an article on Maulana Ali. Maulana Ali had many titles, and one of his titles is that he is known as Kasimul Jannati wan Nar. That Maulana Ali was the divider. He divided those who would go into hell and those who would go into Jannah. Jannah is paradise, and Nar, it means fire, hell. This is the symbolic name of hell. So we now have to consider who are the Muttaqin. So this is very relevant for us. Who are the Muttaqin, the ones who are righteous? those who are noble in conduct, who are there, you know? There are very few. They are definitely in a minority. In fact, I would go so far as to say they are a minority within a minority. And I will explain that in a minute. So who are the muttaqin? So first and foremost, they have adhered, they have held on to this fundamental principle of the recognition of the Imam of the time. So they recognize Imam of the time. And the second condition is that they have to follow his farmans rigorously. You cannot call yourself a muttaqi, a righteous person, a person whose conduct is noble and it is the best in the sight of Allah, unless you follow the Imam's guidance rigorously, you know. And this again is from the Holy Quran. You see, I have said now, haven't I, many times in this session, that I reference everything from the Quran where I can. And the Quranic ayat is in Surah Ibrahim, Surah 14, and it's ayat 36. It is in Hazrat Ibrahim's words, but it applies to every single divine guide. What does Hazrat Ibrahim say? He says, it's a very short sentence. So in Arabic, man tabi'ini fa innahu minni. You know, the Quran is very poetic as well. Man tabi'ini fa innahu minni. Those who follow, those who obey me are indeed mine. They are indeed of me. They are mine. And I think when I was preparing this session, the Farman which straight away came into my mind was that Maulana Hazimam has said that our faith should not be a faith of convenience. It should be a faith of conviction. And conviction is only there where there is rigorous, meticulous, absolute Farman Bardari. Right? And why should this be so? Because this again, I'm repeating myself now. In previous sessions, I don't think, not in this series of lectures, but the ones on Jamaat Khana and the others that I did, I had gone into detail about the event of Gadir Khum. And most people know about Man kuntu maulahu fahaza aliyun maulahu. They also may know, because this is read out in the Jamaat Khana, that the Prophet left two weighty, significant things, the Book of God and his progeny. But what they do not know much about is the prayer that at the end of this declaration, at the end of this hadith about Sakalain, the two weighty things, the Prophet then raised his hands and he prayed to Allah. What did he say? They are very, very important words. He said, "O Allah, love those who love Ali and be the enemy of those who are his enemies. Help those who help Ali and abandon those who abandon Ali." And then the last sentence is even more amazing. And in Arabic it is وَأَدْرِ الْحَقَّ مَعَهُ حَيْثُ دَارَ, which means, "O Allah, turn the truth in the direction in which Ali turns." One of the people who attends these sessions told me that they need to listen to my lecture more than once. And I think perhaps that's not such a bad idea, because I have collected so much material to impart, to share with you, that yes, I think these type of things. So I would like to repeat this dua again. "O Allah, love those who love Ali and be the enemy of those who are his enemies." help those who help Ali, and abandon those who abandon Ali, and turn the truth in the direction in which Ali turns. You note here, I hope you see the difference. The Prophet didn't say that, oh Allah, make Ali turn in the direction of truth, because truth is not there. What the Imam does and says is the truth. So the truth turns in the direction in which Ali turns. And even simple hadith like, I am the city of knowledge and Ali is its gate. Whoever wishes to acquire knowledge should come through the gate. You know, this also in the Ismaili scholars and dais and hujjats and peers writings, they particularly give importance to those hadiths which have backing in the Quran, which the Quranic ayats also back up or support. And this one about enter through the gate of my city, or enter through the door of my house of wisdom. Two ahadith of the Prophet about Maulana Ali. There is a Quranic reference, very interesting. It's in Surah 2, ayat number 189. And it says that it is not righteousness that you go to houses by their backs, but the righteous is he who wards off evil. So go to houses by their gates. You see? So it makes you wonder why people do not realize. Why do they not realize that the Imam is the gate to the divine knowledge, which the Holy Prophet had brought to this world in the form of Tanzeel? And it is only through this gate that you will ever acquire that religious knowledge, that spiritual knowledge. And it is in this context that the preamble of our Constitution has that beautiful sentence, which I have also repeated many times, that the preamble of our global Ismaili Constitution says that the Imam's ta'aleem lights the murid's path to spiritual enlightenment and vision. So it is only the Imam's ta'aleem, not anybody. This is why my very first session was about the concept of ta'aleem in this series. Only the Imam's ta'aleem lights the murid's path. This is very interesting. The word murid is used here. So why is the word murid used here? We all know, I hope, that murid comes from the word irada. Irada means will. I have my will, is my irada. And a murid is one who submits his irada, his will, to the Imam of the time. And we've all heard that the definition of Islam is the submission of our will to Allah. Exoteric people stop here, but esoteric people know that you cannot submit your will to Allah directly, a point which I spent a whole session on, wasila. So our definition is submission of our will to Allah through his appointed Khalifa, Prophet or Imam. So this type of submission is what makes you a muttaqi, makes you righteous, makes you noble in conduct, which is the best in the eyes of Allah, because it is the Imam who decides what is right and what is wrong. These things do not exist on their own. He is the one who gives you the benchmark. He sets the bar for you, because he has knowledge both of this world as well as the spiritual world. So this is the reason why we have been talking about today the universality of um, uh, Prophet or Imam. And within that, these two terms, Imamun Nas and Imamul Muttaqin. I hope that some things have been cleared in your minds uh, about what is the position of the Imam. He is not only the Imam of the Ismailis, he is the Imam of that time. And I think I'm going to stop there now and allow for questions. Because
Are you coming to the stars
the
photo
question
shoot?
could be about
You come to the stars photo
topic
shoot.
today.
You don't have to come. I just need.
I think somebody is quite anxious to ask already. Okay.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. As you said, there is a lot to take in, a lot of references, and some of the friends are helping us collect all these references. And hopefully, if you do have a document with all these references, please do share. So when we share the audio later on this week, we will share the references as well. Thank you, Rashidah Sahibah. So far, there is a comment-like question, and let me see if I can get to that one. It was earlier when you were talking about 1771, Imamul Nas. So the question comes, it is hard to comprehend that people will be called with the Imam of their time, 1771, time which is uncountable, and most people do not believe in the Imam of their time. Can you please take a minute or two and shed some more light on this? Thank you.
Okay, so this is extremely difficult for our Jamaat, particularly from the Indian subcontinent, because our knowledge of the Quran is very basic or non-existent, I think. So when we say that the Imam is witness, Shaheed, over the deeds of the people of his time, so it means that first and foremost, those who are his murids and who are the muttaqin in the real sense, they will have performed their actions, their deeds, in the light of his guidance. Yes? You see, I think maybe there is a basic lack of understanding of what Farman Bardari is. To obey the farmans of the Imam is to create your own record of deeds. And you all, I hope you all believe that we will have to account for what we do in this world after we leave this world. I hope that is the first basic understanding, right? That we will all have to account, whether we have recognized the Imam or not recognized him, right? And the Quran is very, very clear. You know, people seem to think that in the life after this physical life, in the spiritual world, we'll all be equal. That is a very wrong understanding. And I want you to refer to Surah Waqiyah, which is Surah 56 of the Quran. And you will see in Surah Waqiyah that there are three groups of people. We should look at Surah Waqiyah from ayat number 7 to 12, I think it is, yes? I have a note of that somewhere. Yes, verses 7 to 12. 56, Surah 56, and 7 to 12. And in Surah Waqia, but this is not the only example in the Quran, there are many others. Surah Waqia says that there will be the people of the right hand, and there will be the people of the left hand, and then a third group who are called the Sabiqun, foremost. They are the ones who are foremost. In other words, you see that there is what we call meritocracy in the spiritual world as well. You know, this word meritocracy has been introduced by Maulana Hazar Imam into the vocabulary of the world. Meritocracy, excellence, is not something only in the physical world. It is also in the spiritual world. And the meritocracy there depends on how we obey the Imam's farmans here. So those who have practiced a faith of conviction, who have obeyed the farmans of the Imam absolutely, properly, correctly, they are going to be obviously in the foremost, the Sabiquna. They are the foremost. And those who have done so to a certain extent will be in the people of the right hand. And those who have not recognized and not obeyed the farmans of the Imam will be in the people of the left hand. So this is a Quranic reality, yes? The Quran does not say that everybody will be the same once they leave these physical bodies. If that was the case, then there would be no meaning to life at all. There would be no meaning to why some people behave and others break every single law that there exists, right? So you have to be, you have to understand that who will be the witness of these actions? The Imam of the time. He will be the witness to all those actions. That's why the Quran says that people will be called with the Imam. And then because you have asked this question specifically about 1771, we should go to 1772 because that explains to you then the other group, okay? It's not possible every time to, you know, use all the ayats of the Quran, right? Okay, so I shall read out the whole of this because this question is specifically about this. On the day when we shall summon all human beings with their Imam, then whoso is given his book in his right hand. Now you see, here is the mention of the right. And this is the same right which is in the Surah Waqia. The people of the right hand, Ashabul Yameen. And this one, so after the right hand, such will read their book and they will not be wronged, even a shred. So those who receive their book in their record in their right hands, they will have reward. They will not be wronged. Now look at ayat number 72. And whoso is blind here will be blind in the hereafter and are far astray from the path. Far astray from the path. So you have to ask yourself a question, why is God being so strong? You know, why is he being so harsh about blindness here? Is he talking about physical blindness? No, he's not talking about physical blindness. People who are physically blind or deaf or dumb or have any of these other disabilities, in the Quran they are called those who have already been rewarded by God. So this is not physical blindness. Here, this blindness is about not recognizing the Imam of the time. And they are going to be the same in the hereafter, and they will be far astray from the path. You see, in the very opening chapter of the Quran, the Surah Fatiha, we also have the three groups. Those who are on Sirat al-Mustaqim, and those who have gone astray, and those who have earned the displeasure and anger of God. Three groups, yeah, always, always, always present. So this is something which comes through intense study of the Holy Quran. You know, I think last time I read out a farman of Maulana Hazir Imam from 1967 in Bombay that, you know, it takes years of hard work to study the Quran. But the Imam wishes that that should be the case so that the real Hakikati concepts then spread in the Jamaat. So I hope that, you know, I knew, that's why I stopped 5 minutes earlier today. I knew exactly the thinking. This has been a question which has been asked many, many times. What I suggest is that we need to do more Quranic understanding and study in order to know what are the hakikats, what are the realities, yeah? We seem to be always floating on the surface of knowledge because we have not given enough importance to acquiring hakikati knowledge. I hope that I have really elaborated on this comment, question, whatever it was.
Yes, yes, you have definitely. Subhanallah, subhanallah. So I believe this question on 1771, along with all the other references Rashidah Sahibah just gave to us, if we go back and listen to it and read all those references, it will help a lot in our understanding of how Imamul Muttaqin and Imamul Nas works. Thank you, Rashidah Sahibah. So
But
one more.
I would add, sorry for interrupting, but I would add that when you have the references, be sure that you have more than one translation to look at. Because if it is a Sunni translation, the word Imam will always be plural because they have the belief. Their worldview is centered on the four Imams of their jurisprudence: Hanbal, Hanafi, Shafi, Maliki. Yes? Those are the four Imams they recognize. Therefore, you need to have a Quran in which there is the transliteration of the Arabic into English. And then you can see that the word is actually Imam, singular. So you also need to, when you study, you need to be aware of all these biases and misinformation that there is in the world today, yes?
Yes, agree, 100%. So next question, and if you only think this is relevant to today's subject, the ranks not between one above the other compared to prophets and Imam. I believe she's asking this because in one of the session, I'm not sure it was your session or this Garib and Nachi's session, we had talked about the ranks, Hudud ad-Din. So ranks between the Prophet and Imam, is there one above the other? Can you shed some light on that, please?
Okay. Okay, so if the question is about prophets and Imams, there is very beautiful hadith as well. In all ways, you can find answers to the quotations of our holy prophets. That all the prophets, yeah, you know, generally speaking, people talk about great prophets and not so great prophets. But the Holy Prophet actually says that all the prophets are like nafse wahida. They are a single soul. And all the mu'mineen are like brothers. Yeah, this is a hadith of the Prophet. So from this hadith, you know that although the Prophet, certain prophets may have had a more important or significant historical role, like Hazrat Adam, Hazrat Noah, Hazrat Abraham, Hazrat Musa, Hazrat Isa, and Hazrat Nabi Muhammad Mustafa. And we also know that amongst Imams, you know, there are Imams who have, like Maulana Sultan Shah, 72 years of Imamat. but his father only 3 years of imamah. So obviously their historical roles are very different. But the nur, the light of Allah, is the same. There is no difference whatsoever. They are the same. These ranks are, if you like, ranks of knowledge, if you like, yes? The hudud-e-din that we discuss in our lectures, and this is in the classical times, from the time of Maulana Sultan Muhammad Shah, which is the beginning of the cycle of Qiyamah, we do not have hudud-e-din externally. We don't have hudud-e-din in the external world. But hudud-e-din were on ranks of knowledge. Their ranks or darajat or levels depended on their knowledge, hakikati knowledge, esoteric knowledge, knowledge of the spiritual world as well, yeah? I think I've answered the question, but I'm not sure. Whoever asked
Actually,
can
you
come back.
have. Yes, no, you have. Because I believe it was geared toward the nur and their function within the imams and the prophet.
It's a very basic concept, but you have to understand that, take for instance Panchtane Pak. There were 5 Nurani personalities at the time of the Prophet, but the Prophet was the one who had the authority. And when the Prophet physically left this world, it was Imam Ali who had the authority. And that's why there is a hadith of, I really think that perhaps I should mention again here today that we have updated a book called The Ahlul Bayt in the Prophetic Traditions, which Dr. Hunzai and I helped him in that publication. It's on our websites, ismaililiterature.org and monoreality.org. Please read those ahadiths about the Ahlul Bayt. There's a treasure of knowledge in there. And the beauty of this book, now it is in English translation as well as Urdu translation. And the beauty of this book is that Dr. Hunzai only selected those hadiths which are in the Sunni sources. He didn't use Shia sources because, of course, the Shias always say good things about the Panchtane Pak. He selected only from the Sunni exoteric sources, which shows how important these hadiths are. And if the Jamaat doesn't take advantage of such literature, then they cannot progress in knowledge by just simply listening.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. So the next question regarding the, I'll just read it. Will complete his nur as per his promise, 932, Surah Tawbah, ayat number 32.
Yes.
How? That
Yes.
is the only question there. Gee.
Very good question. That is a good question. It is a question of the person has thought about these ayats about Allah will not allow anybody to blow his light out, right? But in fact, he will perfect it. So yes, it raises the question, the nur of Allah, was it imperfect to begin with and then becomes perfect? No, it is not about the nur of Allah. It is about the people and their recognition and understanding of that nur. So for instance, because we have mentioned Prophet Muhammad and Hazrat Ali quite a lot, I would like you to understand that Maulana Ali, when after the Prophet's burial ceremony, he was left with only 17 followers, 17. But today, we estimate that the Imam of the time, Maulana Shah Karim ul Hussaini, the Imam who has the same nur as Maulana Ali, but that he is recognized by at least 15 million Ismailis, right? So compare the 15 million to number 17, 17. So the Nur has become perfect now in the sense that more people recognize it and understand it. And it's not only 15 million Ismailis who, there are many more because of the Imam's work in the world today, many more people who recognize it. Maybe they don't recognize his spiritual level, but they certainly recognize that his leadership is better than many, many so-called leaders in the world. So Nur, perfection of Nur is in that sense, okay? Somebody has posed the question, who are these 17 followers? Well, we all know a few of them. Salman Farsi was one of them. Dahya Kalbi was one. Yasir bin Ammar, Miqdad, people like that. So 17. You can go to any good book on Shia Islam and you will find the list there.
The next question on the other chat on the WhatsApp group regarding the Hamilane Arsh, since the 17 was mentioned, about the 8 who have carried the Arsh of Allah.
Okay, so they want to know who they are. So Hamilane Arsh is also mentioned in the Quran, definitely. And the 8, first and foremost, what we have to ask is that is Allah's throne so heavy that it needs 8 angels to carry it, right? It's an allegory. It is a parable. It's symbolic. So this Arsh is obviously the Nur of Allah. The throne is actually the Nur of Allah, and it is carried by 8 people, meaning that in its esoteric understanding, we have to have the esoteric, because the physical understanding is not right, that there is a throne and it is being carried by 8 angels or imams or whatever, right? The number 8 has great significance because in the Holy Quran, in the Surah Kaf, the Surah of the cave, there is a story of the 7 sleepers in the cave and their dog. And I don't know if this has been discussed on any of your other sessions. I wouldn't know. But this, in Ismaili esoteric understanding, the 7 is the cycle, the small cycle of Imams. Yes. So, for instance, in the time of Prophet Muhammad, we have now had 7 small cycles of Imams. Therefore, Maulana Hazri Imam is our 49th Imam today. So 7 are the Imams, but the dog who refuses to lead them, the dog who insists on following them, the dog whom they try all sorts of measures to, make him go away, but they don't succeed. This dog follows the 7 into the cave. He becomes one of them. This is an allegory of a murid, a real murid, a real muttaqi murid who follows every single farman of the Imam and who eventually merges his own soul and becomes fana, becomes merged in the light of the Imam. This is a symbolism of the number 8 in the Quran. And that is the case with the Amilane Arsh. That same number 8 is an indication of that. So from your questions, I hope you now, all of you understand that you cannot understand the Quran only on a Zahiri level. You have to understand the Quran on an esoteric or Batini level, and for that you need the Imam of the time, who is the Rasikun fil Ilm, who is the Ulil Amra, who is the Ahlul Zikr. I have repeated all this in my previous sessions. So my prayer and my hope is that all of you will take time to digest, to really regurgitate all this knowledge and to connect it and to understand it as a single thread about Imam.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Both Khub. This was more than I believe the question was, but this is so great that we are able to hear and connect all these dots in different places. Subhanallah. Thank you so much. So there are some other questions, but those are not related to our subject today, so I will leave them for some other session. Kamran Sahib, do we have any question, or do you want to turn on the audio? If anyone like to ask, we can allow one more question, direct question, if someone would like to ask.
Yes, sir. So we don't have any questions in the chat room. But friends, if you have any question, please unmute your device.
Can I ask a question, please?
G.
Yali Madad. You mentioned the Shah Karim obviously is our 49th Imam. And earlier you mentioned Sultan Muhammad Shah's time was the beginning of Qiyamah. Now, I have heard Khalil Andani's extensive lecture on this topic as well.
Good.
But I'm really confused in a sense. Sultan Muhammad Shah was our 48th Imam. My understanding was that Qiyamah happens every seventh Imam. Am I correct?
Yes, your understanding is correct, but it is partial. There are Qiyamas. First and foremost, you need to know the meaning of the word Qiyamah. Okay? Yes, resurrection. It means resurrection. But what happens in a resurrection? A huge, tremendous change takes place, right? Sometimes very, very large changes take place, and sometimes not so large. So change, and I hope you have, this is a farman which if any of you know where it was, because I have not yet found it, that the Imam actually said, change is the only constant. Look at the English, very enigmatic words. Change is the only constant. Change happens all the time, right? Yeah. So yes, there is change after every Imam. There's a bigger change after every seventh Imam, so that's called but there is a continuous resurrection. If resurrection is something which you want to study really deeply, I would recommend that you go to a book of Allama Nasiruddin Hunzai, which is called Mizanul Haqa'iq, The Balance of Realities. It's a very difficult book. When that book was sent to the Library of Congress, as all his books have been sent, they actually wrote a letter back to us saying, does this book belong to philosophy or does it belong to science? It's a difficult book. But if you are really interested, you will persist in reading it again and again and see what you can make of it. And then there are people around, like Aziz Bhai, Kamalia Saib, Niamat Sahibah, myself. We are here to help you, right? So, yes, Qiyamah happens all the time. But a bigger Qiyamah is when 1,000 years of a prophet come to an end. Yes, and then an even bigger Qiyamah takes place when 7,000 years of a large cycle, a very major cycle, come to an end. Okay, the resurrection is a very important topic of the Holy Quran. Ikhwanu Safa write that there are 1,700 references to Qiyamah in the Quran.
Thank you.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah. Thank you, Bashir, for asking a wonderful question. Thank you. So should we stop here, Kamria Sahib?
Yes, sir, we can do that. We don't have any more questions.
I'd like to thank Rashidah Sahibah once again for wonderful session and so much research and so many hours of work you must have put into this session. We thank you from bottom of our heart. Thank you, and thank you for everyone for connecting with us this morning and in afternoon in London. Thank you again. Inshallah, we will see you next week with the last session of this series. Inshallah. Thank you.
Inshallah. And I also want to thank you all for organizing and attending these sessions. And may Khudawan really bless you all with his Nurani Bidar, which is always in the form of knowledge, Hakikati understanding. So my prayer is that you should, from these lectures and the study you do afterwards, may Mola help you to absorb his Nur. The Ruhul Qudus, the Holy Spirit of the Imam, comes in the form of Hakikati knowledge to a moment. Okay? Thank you, all of you. And Ya Ali Madad, wherever you are.
Ameen, Ameen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and Yali Madad.
Allah Ali
Rashidah